Winter has always been harsh in Russia. That is the fate of its geography. But the winter of 2025 brought more than snow and ice. It brought collapse. Look at the skies over Moscow. According to flight tracking data, more than 100 flights have been canceled at the capital's airports, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. At Vnukovo Airport, crews struggle to clear runways buried under snow. But it isn't enough. And here's why. Russia is no longer facing a natural winter. It is facing a perfect storm. Siberian cold collides with Ukrainian drone strikes. Snow shuts down roads while kamikaze drones destroy the energy facilities meant to heat the country. Power plants fall one by one. Heating systems fail. Darkness spreads. Vladimir Putin once believed that General Winter would always defend Russia. But today, that same winter has turned its weapon toward the Kremlin. Because Putin buried Russia's budget, energy, and manpower in the war in Ukraine. Fuel meant for snowplows now powers tanks. Infrastructure budgets fund missiles. Repair crews are sent to the front lines. The result is nationwide paralysis. From Moscow's luxury avenues to Yakutia's frozen villages, the same story unfolds. Planes cannot take off in the capital. Boiler rooms fall silent in Siberia. Factories shut down in the Ural Mountains. As power plants are struck, winter seeps through the cracks and freezes the country from within. The freezing of civilians has become a footnote next to the obsession with victory. Today we are examining a collapse left defenseless by war, crushed by drones and ice. Russia's infrastructure is a tired Soviet legacy. And in the winter of 2025, that legacy raised the white flag. Across the country, hot water erupts from broken pipes like geysers. Streets turn into skating rinks within minutes. Buildings crack under extreme cold, and repairs never come. Why? Because the plumbers, welders, and engineers who could fix these systems are dying in Ukrainian trenches. The billions needed to modernize infrastructure were diverted to hypersonic missiles. While Putin warns that Europe will freeze, Russia's own heating systems collapse city by city. The war has consumed not only soldiers but municipal services. Urban residents now live in medieval conditions inside modern apartment blocks. When heating fails, electric heaters overload the grid. Transformers explode. A domino effect spreads across the system. And if cities are loud with chaos, imagine the silence of Russia's farthest regions, where even sound freezes. That is where the real tragedy begins. Let's go to Yakutia, Russia's largest and loneliest region. Temperatures there have plunged to minus 56 degrees Celsius. Regional Energy Minister Vyacheslav Ulyanov appeared on camera and admitted the truth. Companies cannot pay. Coal reserves are gone. Deliveries have stopped. Entire districts, Aldansky, Churupchinsky, Tatinsky, have run out of coal. Who is responsible? Not the private sector. The largest debtor is the state itself. State company debts prevent coal deliveries. Mines stop operating. Citizens freeze. The state owes the state, and the system locks itself. In the settlement of Sangar, 2 major boiler stations were shut down over unpaid debts. In Olenyok, a state of emergency was declared before winter even began. Local administrators received only a third of the funds promised by Moscow, barely enough coal to last until November. November has passed. What are people burning now? Furniture or hope? Officials in Chirapcha offered chilling advice. Do not heat cultural centers. Do not heat sports halls. Do not heat administrative offices. Save energy. Imagine a state unable to heat its own schools. State media celebrates heroic workers laboring at minus 50 degrees Celsius, but reality tells a different story. In Tixi, schools are closed, kindergartens frozen, pipes burst beyond repair. And the crisis doesn't stop with heat. Siberia has run out of gasoline. Siberia, the land of oil. Governors beg Moscow as fuel stations stand empty. Only police and ambulances receive supplies. Why? Because Ukrainian drones are systematically striking Russian refineries. Reuters reports refining capacity has dropped by 20%. President Zelensky's words echo through empty stations. Russia's energy sector will pay the price of war. And it is paying daily. According to the Moscow Times, industrial production fell 0.7% year-on-year in November, the first contraction since early 2023. Manufacturing dropped 1%, driven almost entirely by civilian industries. Russia can still extract resources, but it can no longer process them into goods for its people. Food production, textiles, furniture, automobiles. Many sectors are collapsing. Agricultural machinery and infrastructure vehicle production have nearly stopped. Items essential to daily life are no longer produced in sufficient quantities. Everything flows into the war economy. This is a haunting echo of the Soviet Union's final years, factories serving the army while store shelves sat empty. Economist Alina Rybakova warns the war economy is no longer compatible with civilian life. As military production grows, living standards collapse, inflation rises, imports shrink, purchasing power erodes, even defense production shows fatigue. Growth in armored vehicle output has slowed sharply. Military manufacturing momentum is fading. And still, the Kremlin revises growth forecasts downward. What began as a war for influence has become a war against Russia's own future. General Winter has not come to save Moscow. It has come to expose it. And this time, the cold is winning. So what is Putin doing? As budgets collapse and projects fail, Putin appears on television and declares, "Local officials are failing. Everyone must be involved." This is classic Russian political theater. Moscow cuts funding, drains resources, and pours everything into war. Then when crisis hits, it blames regional governors. While ministers in Yakutia say, "We have no money left," Putin simply shakes his finger and avoids responsibility. And although the Kremlin refuses to accept blame, the economy itself is now on the edge. Western energy sanctions have delivered a heavy blow to Russia's oil exports, Moscow's main source of income. International analysts estimate that oil revenues fell by 15 to 22% in 2025 alone. With growing pressure on shadow tanker fleets, insurance barriers, and port blacklists, this decline is expected to deepen in 2026. Experts agree that oil profits could fall another 10 to 15% next year. But the most critical issue is this. The Kremlin is still planning its budget using fantasy prices. The 2026 federal budget assumes oil at $60 per barrel, while sanctioned Russian oil sells far below global prices. This artificial gap is creating a massive hole. The budget deficit is racing toward $100 billion. So how does the Kremlin cover the gap? The answer is brutally simple. It turns off the tap. When spending is cut, the first victims are poor, remote regions thousands of kilometers from Moscow. Forgotten territories like Yakutia, Tuva, and Buryatia. Coal deliveries are reduced. Local budgets are frozen. Payments to hospitals are delayed. At the same time, Russia continues exporting energy abroad. Electricity flows to Kazakhstan. Gas is pumped to China. Because for Putin's administration, keeping foreign currency flowing matters more than keeping citizens warm. In Moscow's calculation, a frozen citizen is worth less than a few $1,000,000 wired into reserves. The banking sector has been hit especially hard. Sanctions on institutions like Gazprom Bank have restricted dollar flows and destabilized financial markets. By 2026, a full-scale banking crisis appears increasingly likely as companies struggle under high interest rates and rising debt. Russia's real GDP is now 12% below pre-war forecasts, and the economy risks slipping into negative growth next year. EU sanctions are expected to remain in place indefinitely. Without access to advanced technology, aviation and manufacturing will stagnate, triggering layoffs and falling productivity. By 2026, Russia may face a brutal choice: fund the war or feed the population. The war economy itself is a double-edged sword. Military spending reached $160 billion in 2025, roughly 7.2% of GDP, the highest level since Soviet times. Defense industries expanded and created jobs, but this growth is not sustainable. The 2026 budget prioritizes war above all else, with defense consuming up to 40% of total spending. This militarization is crippling healthcare, education, infrastructure, and public services. War costs exceeded $195 billion in 2025, with equal or higher figures projected for 2026. Labor shortages are worsening the crisis. More than 500,000 Russians have died and millions more have emigrated. Factories prioritize tanks, missiles, and aircraft, while everyday consumer goods disappear. Inflation rises. Economic contraction follows. Experts at the Carnegie Foundation warn that overheating will push Russia towards stagflation in 2026. The demographic picture is equally bleak. Russia's population fell to 142 million in January 2025, down from 147 million in 2021. Over 1 million skilled workers, mainly in tech and finance, have left the country. Birth rates are at historic lows, and a decline of 15 million people by 2046 is projected. Labor shortages will deepen next year. War deaths may exceed 500,000. Productivity will fall. GDP could shrink by 1 to 2%, while stagnation and brain drain become permanent. In short, Russia is trapped in its own contradiction. It calls itself a superpower, but cannot produce tractors. It claims energy dominance, but cannot heat its people. Tank factories run non-stop while baby formula plants shut down. Yakutia, Tuva, Altai. These regions are not just fighting minus 56-degree temperatures. They are fighting betrayal from Moscow. General Winter once protected Russia. He stopped Napoleon. He stopped Hitler. But today, General Winter has become the Kremlin's greatest enemy, because this cold freezes not only the land, but the regime's legitimacy. As Russia enters 2026, it stands at a crossroads: continue funding the war and condemn millions to hunger and cold, or abandon imperial ambition and keep its citizens alive. Putin's choice is clear: tanks first, people later. This winter may be survived with generators, wood stoves, and neighborly help. But something else is already melting: the loyalty that once held the system together. It is cracking like Siberia's frozen pipes. The silence of Yakutia is not empty. It is a warning. Share your thoughts below. Subscribe and drop your comments below.